also have Ashish Kundra, who is the Principal Secretary, come Commissioner Transport, Government of Delhi, which is one of the most progressive states in terms of really pushing the pedal on e-mobility. They also have a dedicated electric mobility cell within the Delhi Transport Department, which is just looking at accelerating e-mobility in the Delhi state. So if you could join us here on the stage. And then we have John Smith-Sreen, Director, Indo-Pacific Office, USAID India. Uh, John, I know it's always difficult to get back the audience into the hall after any break. So we are also struggling with that. But hopefully people will settle in because we have back-to-back sessions. So we may have to start, on time. So again, a very warm welcome back to this session on e-mobility in South Asia. Again, a topic which is very pertinent to South Asia as all the countries in the region are really embarking on this transition from ICE engines to electric mobility. And that's why this session has been kept. It is my pleasure to welcome, on behalf of USAID, all of you at this particular session in the first South Asia Clean Energy Forum. We have very distinguished set of our two expert speakers here, along with John, who have actually right at the national and the state level. They represent the national and the state level in terms of really spearheading the e-mobility in the country. Um, and this adoption of electric vehicles is very critical to the South Asia region to cap emissions that are coming from the transport sector, which is a big contributor to the emissions, and also lower the reliance on fuel imports. And again, to sustain the EV adoption, the charging infrastructure is very critical, as well as also looking at options of how this can be through much greener means through renewables. That is again a very important area that we would perhaps be discussing in the panel discussion today. So without taking much time, may I now request John, who is the director, as I said, for the Indo-Pacific Office, USAID India, to just give his welcome remarks for this session. John.
8 times now. Such a fabulous experience. So, for those of you visiting this beautiful country, or even those of you who live here, I would highly recommend it. 23 years ago, on one of these visits, USAID was working with the Central Pollution Control Board and the State Pollution Control Board, and we were looking at activities to reduce the destruction of the Taj from air pollution. The air pollution in and around Agra was so bad that it was actually pitting and scarring the marble. And one of the things that had been implemented, and the Archaeological Survey of India was behind this as well, was to require electric vehicles to move in and around the Taj. And for those of you who have been there, you know that you can either walk up to the Taj or you have EVs that come there. We were quite interested in this model because very often you need a catalyst. You need to draw attention to an issue. And of course, everyone in the world knows about the Taj Mahal. And to talk about the pitting and scarring of the marble was something that drew attention then to electric vehicles. So we began collaborating with the Society of Indian Automobile Manufacturers. We had a public-private partnership with one of the pioneers of EVs in India, Chetan Mani of the Reva car. We forged a public-private partnership with Bajaj Auto and the Bajaj three-wheeler, and Revas were launched. In fact, the U.S. Embassy bought one to scoot around town to pick up mail and such, and it was a perfect car for Delhi driving. It had a range of about 60 kilometers, which was fine for Delhi. Now, Bajaj three-wheelers are a standard in India. My last post in Bangladesh, electric three-wheelers from Bajaj are roaming the streets in Bangladesh. You can find them throughout Southeast Asia as well. So EVs over the course of the past 2 decades have expanded significantly. USAID has been part of that process with many of the key stakeholders in this room today. And in fact, you'll hear from two experts shortly. But let me continue to describe this trajectory in terms of the expansion of e-mobility in India. We, USAID, began partnering with Energy Efficiency Services Limited and crafted a business model and partnered with EESL and the subsidiary CESL in terms of procurement of electric buses, in terms of dissemination of charging infrastructure. And now, if you go around Delhi, right across from the Ministry of Power, you see a charging station there. Nehru Park, you'll see a charging station. Khan Market, there are charging stations all over Delhi, as well as in other cities. The technology has evolved over time, so that 60-kilometer range of the Reva vehicle has now expanded to 200 to maybe 350 kilometers, depending on the vehicle. So you can actually drive your electric vehicle, charge up in the morning in Delhi, go down to Agra, tour the Taj, and drive it back, charge up and drive it back in the evening. Tremendous expansion in terms of technology, again, in just 20 short years. In March, I had the pleasure to actually collaborate with a Purva down in Mumbai. We began working with Invest India under the Ministry of Commerce. And together with our colleagues from the South Asia Regional Energy Partnership, we did an overview of e-mobility in India. What are the opportunities? What are the constraints? What does the market look like today? Where have we gone in the past and where might we go in the future? And that report we launched, but more importantly, we launched a funding platform for e-mobility in cooperation with Invest India. And the whole idea was serving as a matchmaker, figuring out some attractive projects that were being put together by project developers, by equipment suppliers, by interested stakeholders, and trying to match them with financial institutions. So this was a winnowing process. We probably went through 180 different possible ideas. We winnowed that down to the top 25. We brought them all to Mumbai, and we did sort of a speed dating day where we brought together the project developer with the potential financial institution to pitch these ideas. From there, we winnowed down even further, and we're now looking at 9 possibilities in terms of future funding. So the market potential is quite large. We're looking at this particular platform of somewhere in the neighborhood of $300 million in terms of deals. Um, that's always uh, a potential constraint is identifying the finance for a deal. And we feel that USAID can play that catalytic role of matchmaker, not necessarily providing the financial resources ourselves, but by identifying where funding might come from, and then to help structure bankable projects. At times, project developers it's quite a bit of opportunity costs for developers to put forward a competitive proposal to financial institutions. So that's another role that USAID and our colleagues from SAREP can play is providing a bit of transaction advice in terms of putting forward um, bankable projects. That's still ongoing. That's still playing out, and it'll be interesting to see how many of these deals actually come to fruition. We've also been working for a number of years with various financial institutions on loan portfolio guarantees. This is where the US government steps in and provides a 50% guarantee to the financial institution should a loan go bad. These are broader loan portfolio guarantees, but there's a heavy focus on renewable energy, and there's great interest in terms of e-mobility among these financial institutions and among project developers themselves. From that, we've been experimenting a bit. We've been trying to get creative because there are other models out there besides the loan portfolio guarantee. So we're working with the private sector now to put together what we're calling an alternative investment fund dedicated to e-mobility. So that fund has been structured and the functions identified. We're still working on capitalizing that particular instrument, but it's efforts like this, looking at the development of the technology, trying to forge partnerships, trying to serve as a matchmaker, as a transaction advisor, trying to identify the appropriate levels of climate financing that will continue to drive that sector forward. We feel there's incredible potential in countries like India and Bhutan and Bangladesh and Sri Lanka and Nepal and the United States. Maldives, I'm less certain of for EVs, but perhaps as well in Maldives. So in short, tremendous potential. We've been very, very involved in the sector for many, many years now. And we welcome all of you to this discussion that will focus on the opportunities and the constraints within the e-mobility sector, and look forward to the remarks from our experts gathered here today. Thank you.
Thank you, John. We don't call you the institutional memory for nothing. So that is very evident every time you speak about what India has done and your own association in the energy space. May I now, request Sudhendu Sinha ji, Advisor Transport and Electric Mobility, Niti Aayog, who's of course leading the efforts at a national level on e-mobility, and under whose guidance we've been doing all this work on e-mobility financing. So, for your presentation.
And thanks to the entire team of USAID and their SAREP, SAREH, and others units. Electric mobility conversation forward. And it is always so nice to see that as we are moving along, our conversation is gradually, we are addressing to issues which are more granular, deeper still, and that is what the essential aspect of this success story of electric mobility in India is. So at Niti Aayog, Niti Aayog is the home base for the national mission on transformative mobility and battery storage. So that mission was inspired by a global move summit in which Prime Minister himself was taking the lead. And finally, through all the national level regulatory and cabinet approvals, this mission was established. It was set up at Niti Aayog. An interministerial committee was also set up so that to take this thing forward. And of course, the base was again Niti. CEO was supposed to be the mission chief, and that was how, because it was very difficult to look for a ministry that could essentially and completely house this particular mobility. When Niti started getting into the details, and when we were studying the how exactly this transformation is taking place all over the world, maybe close to some 24, 25 odd countries of Europe and Asia, so we could see that okay, uh, one thing was absolutely clear, that this is the greatest global disruption of our times. And maybe if we adopt it, if we are able to adopt it, this can be a big, economic advantage for the country also, other than environmental advantage. That was the mindset with which we started. And it gives tremendous satisfaction to say, to tell you, inform you that we are at a very fast pace, and the place where we are, it is something, at such a short span of time, it would have been very difficult to be where we are. But let's see a few slides. So these are the, I mentioned about the Move Summit, wherein the contours of mobility was set with these 7 Cs. And of course, that spelled out that how exactly, if we adopt the mobility, what would be the sequencing of mobility, which vehicle segment would be taking it first in the country. So the idea was very clear for the individual vehicles, two-wheelers and three-wheelers, public transport. Cars would always be at the end. India is not a car driving nation at all. There cannot be a comparison with US, where there are some 900 odd cars per thousand. Here we have got 20. But yes, aggregator based cars, definitely. That is why you see the aggregator based car that has been supported in the FAME initiative. So, this is what the mission is. You see the mandate and the interministerial steering committee, the objectives and the vision. It has been so clearly laid out. And finally, where exactly we started. No, it was a very calculated strategy how to take it forward. So, we knew that the national role should be confined to, the center's role should be confined to initiate major programs and policies. That is all. Major programs, rather, and plans. As far as policies are concerned, we thought that it should be left to the states, because it was needed also in our kind of political structure. We didn't want to run into any roadblocks, any confusion with some states saying that okay, this is your baby, so let environment be taken care of you by you. We are not interested in things. So we simply just nudged them. And let me just inform you that if we take 2015, very interesting trajectory is there. If we take 2015 to be a serious year when we started on electric mobility, then the first policy took us almost 29 months to come. It was Karnataka in 2017 September who floated the policy. After nudging all states on a consistent basis by Niti Aayog and the partners, only one state could come out with an EV policy. Interestingly, they were the first to run the EV also. Now, in the second 29 months, 9 states joined. So the score goes 10. But imagine what a major resistance has been or the cloud of doubt has been whether they should be adopting, they should not be adopting, it's good, bad, where exactly it should be hosted with the Ministry of Industry, Ministry of Transport, Energy, Environment, where exactly should electric mobility be positioned. But in the next 23 months, 29, 29, 23, in next 23 months, 19 states joined. 1, 9, 19. 19 states joined. Among them, three of them were the ones which had recalibrated, revised, amended their policy. So, one thing was very clear that the states were able to make out that what should be the fundamental strength of these policies, how they can recalibrate it, and the states started viewing it from a different quarter altogether. For them, it was not only for running the vehicles. They thought that this is the best opportunity for obtaining investment, for creating employment opportunities, acting as a money spinning for the state treasury in terms of so many revenue collections kind of things. So that was the view, and this was something very good. It was working to our favor. And today, 33 out of 36 states and union territories, I'm combining them in the same cluster, they have either notified or put them into draft stage. Only last a few of them are still to be. All of them are now today game for it. Now, this I take to be a major, you know, good thing. If I recollect one policy, then other than PM Gati Shakti, there is not about one single central initiative where all states have, kind of onboarded, not so fast, I would say, but definitely in on the same spirit. We move on. So this is precisely I mentioned about the state EV policies, and they are now taking it in a fast track mode. Uh, there are not less than close to what 150 odd small little initiatives taken by the center, by the state, by international agencies, by our academic institutions, research laboratories. There are close to 150 of them, and all of them are focusing on 7 or 8 aspects of the EV ecosystem. So it is demand generation, it is manufacturing, standards and specifications, circularity is there, then incentives are there, regulatory framework is there. So 7 or 8 incentives. There are close to 150 initiatives that have been taken so far. You see, Niti Aayog, where it has been involved, e-Amrit, one of the portal is there that was launched on the transport day at Glasgow during the COP26. And then this gives you all the information with respect to, in fact, this question was asked, what is e-Amrit in there is a who becomes a millionaire version in India called Kaun Banega Crorepati. So this question was asked also. Battery swapping, NEBP National Electric Bus program has also been phenomenal success that has taken place in India. In the first, we were nudging our OEMs to make electric buses. And after tremendous persuasion, 3 of them agreed to make buses. In the year 2015-16 financial year, when the total number of buses that they could manufacture was only 4. So our journey started with 4 buses in 2015-16. Let's take it to be 5. Out of the 3 companies that manufactured these buses, 2 of them never manufactured anything in India again. So I hope they won't hold us responsible that just because you persuaded us to get into this electric stream, that was the last chapter of our manufacturing, you see. But one of them continued. You see, after 3 years, this figure of 5 becomes 50. So 50 buses were manufactured. After another year, 500. So now 500 becomes a respectable number. Till 50, 5. Okay, the leap is phenomenal, but the number is not, it is not a respectable number. 500 was the number. And immediately after 2 years from then, the total manufacturing shot up to 2,000 buses. Today, there are well over 4,500, close to that, buses up and running all over the Indian ecosystem. And in the National Electric Bus Program, we are supported partially, fully, demand aggregation, only policy support, dry lease, wet lease, a different kind of support is there. But we have almost supported 21,000, close to 21,000 buses. And the aspiration is, national aspiration is that we go for the 50,000 and all the more so. So we are very, in a granular way, we are trying to find out that what exactly is holding us, what should be the enablers, what should be the ones which can act as an accelerator and catalyst to this bus transformation thing. Good thing is that even the small states are now going gung ho. So, example, Himachal has got 3,200 buses fleet strength in their public stream, and they want 2,000 buses to be immediately transformed to electric. So that is what the aspiration is. And of course, my friend Mr. Kundra is there. He is leading it in Delhi, and you can see the presence of buses in Delhi. In fact, I have been always persuading him that run more number of buses in New Delhi, so that these are the people who always have doubts whether India will transform, it will not transform. The fringe people are always convinced that, okay, we are going into electric buses. So more and more of buses, Delhi has got it is one of the major success stories there that they have taken to the public transport in such a fabulous way. Not only in public stream, in two-wheeler, three-wheeler, four-wheeler stream also aggregated uh, uh, perspective from that perspective, there has been phenomenal success. Two-wheeler, if I might tell you, while our target was to support 1 million vehicle units, around 2021 mid, around March or so, our performance was 3.5% of the target. So 35,000 vehicles were supported. Today, it is 93% of the target. In 21 to 23, in these 2 years, you move from 3.5 to 93,000. 93, 94%. That is the kind of leap that it has taken place. Frankly speaking, whatever is manufactured, whoever manufactures gets sold out. Sony campaign is again one of the zero pollution delivery campaign. So there is a wonderful 2-minute video clip on that. I wish Apurva, you should have shown them. This video clip has got 60 million hits. This one video clip has got it. And today there are 150 partners, all the principal, Amazon, IKEA, Flipkart, Swiggy, Zomato, domestic as well as international, all the partners who are into the stream of pollution or delivery. So they are gradually adopting it. The best part is that they themselves make commitment. We just bring them into a platform and bring them on the stage and kind of encourage them to say something publicly, and then we we record it and we keep on chasing them. This is what you told to the public, that you are going to do it. So this is how the strategy has been, and it is a fabulous, some 70 million hours toll deliveries have already taken place on zero pollution delivery. That is what is there. More and more aggressively they are going in. State EV policy accelerator, battery waste management rules. We nudged the Ministry of Environment, Forest and Wildlife to revise the entire policy, because now new things were coming into it. Then we were suggested that with lithium ion getting into the stream, there should be a circular economy. That ecosystem should also be gradually developed. Of course, it has been a late starter, but we know that those battery systems, they are gradually now they will be hitting the end of life, and it's high time rather, that we should create a proper tracking system and things like that. That is why the suggestions with respect to unique identification number, battery passport, and all these things are being floated. E-fast, yes, just Jasmeet is there. They are the ones who are taking it forward. Basically, this is for the heavy duty freight stream. So that is another stream where they are working it. Let me inform you that many of the international organizations and academic bodies, for example, UC Davis, they have reached out to us. Professor Sperling is very intimately connected how to take this thing forward, and we know it well that in California this is going on on a top kind of speed. So these are the achievements which I mentioned to you. Uh, Two of the flagship schemes I would like to mention just in a couple in a 1 minute or so. That is with regard to the PLI scheme for the advanced chemistry cell. That is also a big story. 50 gigawatt hour being supported by 18,100 crore rupees. So that is what the support is there. And second is for the automobile component. So if you see the center's initiative, the vehicle has been supported, the components have been supported, the batteries have been supported. Now the financing, that is the stream where we are taking it forward, because we are aware that the access to finance is still one of the challenges in it. Charging infrastructure, yes, charging infrastructure was being mentioned by John. Charging infrastructure is being taken on being driven on a very fast track mode. And my sense is that today in the country there are close to some 9,000 odd charging points, I should call them, all over the country. And my sense is that in a couple of years you will see that major numbers would be there. So we want it to be developed as a by the industry, basically, that they should look into it as a business proposition. But probably we do see that sometimes they are little diffident about it. That's the reason why we are going in for uh, we are encouraging our own institutions, for example the oil marketing companies, to go in for this. And you are aware that these OMCs, they have been encouraged to set up 22,000 charging stations across there, some 80,000, 60,000 rather, petrol bunks over the country. And out of them, 7,400 odd charging stations, they would be coming. That is what the commitment is there. Milestones have been laid out, and that is what they are supposed to be doing. We are supporting them financially so that they will be coming out by next year's year end. We have also identified that how much you have to do by the September of this year, by December, and then again in two spells of next year. So national mission is, mm, as you know, IITs, I have mentioned, the IITs are also doing fabulous. 16 out of 23 IITs, they have opened up centers of excellence. We encourage them that without you, this is a technological leap. Until, there's an ongoing kind of research into the stream, we won't move forward. So these IITs are doing fabulous. They have opened up the centers of excellence. They have crafted some 13 programs, 13 courses are being run with the 18 interdepartmental participation among these IITs. Yes, Prime Minister, the way he said that, this is a snapshot from the Global Move Summit, where he was talked about the new mobility as a revolution. In fact, he is keen. Many of the inaugurals of the electric vehicles, they have been done by him alone. Shuni campaign, I had mentioned about it, and the international engagements, tremendous amount of gratefulness is there to many of the international communities, because what I find is that this is one stream where all of them are on the same page, that if at all we need to have some access to knowledge, some access to identification of financial sources, something new, they are always there to help us, to collaborate with us to take this forward. And I'm sure that this particular initiative is another milestone into this stream. So with that, I'm done with my trajectory. But the best thing is, that the time that we have spent on electric mobility and the pace with which it is going, Every day I count that when I'm off from my workplace to my home, how many three-wheelers electric do I see? Parts, of course, I don't, but parts, of course, that traction is there. That earlier they did never used to enter into the Delhi boundary, so they were confined around the Gurgaon area only. Now you can find them even in the Noida and Greater Noida area. So with the range getting into that range anxiety going over with them, they are taking it forward. Let me tell you that the industry is completely taking it forward. And this is one initiative where the government, the policymakers, the industrial, manufacturers basically, those who are into the finance stream, those who are working into the knowledge stream, all of them are together. That is why I always say that this success story can only be attributed to none other than Team India. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. As usual, always a pleasure listening to you. And every time I have met you, either at Niti Aayog or some other forums, you've thrown a challenge at us and always said, we always think we have gone to you with some solutions that we have cracked, and sir has always, come up with something more for us to crack. It's your zeal and passion which I think is setting the, really pushing the pedal at the national level. So thank you so much, sir. With that, may I now request Ashish Kundraji, who's the Principal Secretary cum Commissioner Transport, Government of Delhi, again a state which is really spearheading this e-mobility movement at the state level. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. This, okay. Here it is. So I'll quickly come straight to the point. And Delhi launched its electric vehicle policy in August 2020. So it's been about 2.5 years. And while Mr. Sinha has outlined what has been done by Government of India in a whole host of initiatives to accelerate production, manufacturing, and all of that, our policy basically focused on the demand side and how to bring the price point closer to the conventional fuel vehicles. So we were rolling out purchase incentives, waiver of taxes, and so on. So broadly, Delhi today has got about 200,000 electric vehicles. Bulk of them are the e-rickshaws, but the trend is now changing in the sense now e-rickshaws is not the largest segment. Two-wheelers, etc., they are taking the lead. And in December, 17% of the vehicles sold were electric. In fact, that was a peak month somehow. Now it is at 12%, so I won't exaggerate the claims, but nonetheless, 17% was the peak in December. Um, So this is how the various categories have kind of moved over time, and as you can see that the two-wheeler segment has seen the most phenomenal growth over the last 5 years or 4 years. Uh, Now, in terms of adoption, one of the biggest challenges which we face typically is about the range anxiety and charging infrastructure. And as you can see, the Delhi has got 2,700 plus public charging points. We have 1,500 private charging points and 256 battery swapping stations. I think this is the largest by far in the country. From whatever figures Mr. Sinha said, I mean, I gather we have about one-third of the country's charging infrastructure. The figure on the right, which you see, basically what we have done is we have created a heat map of all EV owners in the city. So we have the geospatial coordinates of all EV owners, and we know where the owners are, which clusters, what kind of vehicles, because each vehicle category has different charging requirements. So a e-rickshaw or a scooter owner will have a slow charging or a battery swapping system. For a car, they may need a fast charging framework. So, and the last figure which you see there, it's basically one of the charging stations which look like somewhat like the petrol pumps, which has the branding of Switch Delhi. So the policy which we framed, one of the things was, as was mentioned, that we have created a dedicated EV cell. So, we have hired people from open market who have the background and capacity to do these things and help us in framing new age policies. The other is that we have offered for the first 30,000 charging points in the city a subsidy of 6,000 rupees per charging point. So the typically a charger costs about 8,000, 9,000. So two-thirds of that cost we are subsidizing. So if you want to install it in your home, in your office, or in your shop or whatever, there's a single window mechanism with the discom, and you can do that. The goals which you see on the table in the right is what we have set for ourselves. Um, and This slide is basically giving you milestones since October 2020. Various things which we have done, rolling out of incentives, launching of a public campaign. Then there was a single window for charging, which we have launched. Then the Switch Delhi, there's a website which is available, which people can see. There was a tender for 100 sites for public charging stations, which were awarded in February last year, and so on. And then, as you can see, we have given the orders for 1,500 electric buses in April last year. Now, this is one thing which we are working on. Bike taxis currently are not allowed in Delhi. But we are coming out with a framework in which we are going to allow bike taxi aggregators if they have 100% electric fleets. The second is we have partnered with Delhi Metro for last mile connectivity solutions, and we have given them about 1,500 electric auto rickshaw permits. So if you must have seen in the city, there are these blue colored auto rickshaws which are moving around, which are basically electric autos. And we have issued an order for all government departments to transition their fleets to electric, and that is happening in a slow fashion. The bus story is, I think, one of the most exciting stories which I must mention. So we already have 300 electric buses in our fleet. We have placed orders for 1,500, and by November, these 1,500 will also become part of our fleet. We are on the verge of placing orders for another 4,000 electric buses. Tenders have been finalized. It's just going to the Council of Ministers. And we have floated a bid for another 2,000 plus electric buses. So net by 2025, we are aiming that there'll be 8,800 electric buses, which will make Delhi to be, I think, the second largest electric bus fleet in the world after Shenzhen. Shenzhen, I think, has got 15,000 or something. But after that, Delhi will be the largest bus fleet in the world. Um, Now, I think these are some of the critical challenges which need to be addressed as we go along. Range anxiety, so we need a dense charging infrastructure. So right now, people who are buying cars particularly, they are people who are buying, as a second vehicle in their homes, because people think that they want to go outside the city. How will they kind of manage and cope with charging? Although now, there's a national framework of building charging infra along the highways, and that will give them some comfort. But it for two-wheelers, three-wheelers, etc., who have intra-city kind of movement, this is a no-brainer. The second is that the cost of batteries, of course, is one third or 40% of the total cost of the vehicle. So that has to be brought down, and I think the advanced chemistry cell program will probably help us with do that. Then we need a new workforce which is accustomed and trained into repairs, maintenance, and all of that of EVs. So they were trained in the conventional fuel vehicles, but I think that is something. And I think consumer awareness, we still need to ramp up our methodology of our campaign. So what we did was something which I thought I'll share. We partnered with WhatsApp, and what we kind of created a chatbot, and we sent out messages to everyone who was applying for a driving license. So we thought that, okay, 30% of them at least will be wanting to buy a new vehicle. So let's try to encourage them to get electric. So that was what we did. Now on, I think this broadly circular economy sector has been mentioned. So I think in the end, I will just say that something which was mentioned earlier by John here about financing is something very, very critical. And I think if we are able to somehow create a global pool of green finance, because for scale up, cities ultimately will, or states for that matter, will run out of cash to kind of support large purchase incentives, or even for running a public transport program, for a very intensive public transport program. So I think that is where a partnership will be eminently useful and will be deeply appreciated by everyone, I think, in the government sector. So thank you very much, ladies and gentlemen. It was a pleasure. Thank you.
Thank you. Can say with some conviction here that we would definitely come up under the aegis of Niti Aayog, set up a financing facility focused on e-mobility. We are quite advanced in that initiative. Hopefully, in the next few months, we would be in a position to say, yes, it's been done. And thank you for sharing your insights on Delhi's case as a very aggressive state which is really pursuing e-mobility with such gusto. With that, we have developed, and again in partnership with Delhi Government EV Cell, a tool which is called a charging station assessment tool, which not only sets the targets of how many charging stations are required per city, but also what would be the best locations for setting it up. So that tool, although we have developed specifically for Delhi government, but that can be customized, and we will do that to make it a centralized national tool and also customize it to the states, for the states as well as for the cities. May I now request all the dignitaries on the stage as well as the SAREP to actually launch that tool. So we will just have a short video that we will play for launching that tool. Thank you so much. And this tool, as was just mentioned, is now available on the SAREP website. It also has a user guide on how to operate this tool. We also have one more knowledge product, which we again developed with the Power Sector Skill Council to address the skilled workforce issues in sort of EV installation. And this is called a EV training handbook. And basically, the objective of this handbook is to develop skilled cadre of technicians to install, commission, and operate the growing number of EV charging infrastructure in the country. I'm very thankful to Mr. Praful Pathak, Secretary, Power Sector Skill Council. I request you, sir, to please join us on the stage as we release this training guide. Uh, and also along with the dignitaries here, may I also request the SAREP team who's been involved in developing this to join us on the stage, please. We also have Hemant from International Copper Association, who's been associated with this technician guidebook. May I also request him to join? Now, we will start the panel discussion, but not before we hand over a few mementos to our distinguished panelists. And then we'll have the panel which is waiting here to share their insights. And I'll hand it over to Sumit, the DCOP for SAREP.
Okay, Purva, if you can just give a token of gesture to Surendu sir. Thank you so much, sir, for joining us today. Thank you. Ashish sir, great presentation. Thanks a lot for coming today. Thank you so much. John, thank you once again. Thank you so much. So I'll take the stage from Apurva now. Maybe I would now also like to invite the panelists on the stage. Many thanks, Apurva, and also the dignitaries who were present on the stage for now. I think the session speaker excellent insights and vivid presentations, which both the presenters had. And we now move forward for the next piece, that is panel discussion. My name is Sumit Agarwal, and I represent USAID SAREP as its Deputy Chief of Party. First panelist, Mr. Jasmeet Khurana from World Economic Forum, to be on the stage. Jasmeet is leading moving energy market piece and works towards decarbonizing mobility space. We are also glad to have Mr. Norbu, who represents government of Bhutan, and he works with the Transport Authority in Bhutan and is a seasoned professional who is actually leading the EV transition in the country. I'm happy to have Rajneesh Rana from CSL in the panel. Rajneesh looks after the entire EV portfolio, including e-bus programs, e-charging infrastructure. Lot many good things to hear from him. I also would like to invite Dr. Thusita from Sri Lanka, who is part of several national committees as a senior technical expert in climate change and sustainable development, and also himself a very prestigious faculty with University of Moratuwa, Sri Lanka. And finally, I also would want to invite my colleague Mayank Bhardwaj, who leads the trades and investment vertical at SAREP. Uh, Mayank has been responsible for establishing multi-billion credit lines in clean energy space. So really glad to have a great panel today. I think it's a vivid mix of industry experts, policymakers, academia, which is exactly the apt thing which we need for a further discussion where the stage is all set. And I am also cautious of time, so I will be just straight moving forward to the pointed questions which I have for panelists. So, I mean, moving EV is not a short-term bet, and actually it requires a significant investment. So, uh, if we are in a right place to seize the opportunity for setting up the EV system for tomorrow, there are certain challenges, but I now don't use the word challenges. It's more of opportunities which we have to see and harness them or unlock them. So that is a common question I have for panel members, maybe 1 minute pointed responses that what you see in your country or in world itself are the challenges or opportunities which we need to look forward as a barriers to be overcome so that EV ecosystem can be established. I mean, case is set for itself. So over to you, Jasmeet, if you can quickly respond.
Thank you, first of all, to USAID for inviting me to this discussion. So I think it's a very pertinent question. I think there's no denying anymore that we're moving towards electrification of road transport in every country. It's just the pace may vary, from one country to another, and the motivations may also vary. So, for example, Sudhindu Sinha, she talked about it as well. So for India, for example, the main, you know, globally, let's start with globally. So globally, I think the main motivator is decarbonization, right? So transport sector is a key contributor to global greenhouse gas emissions, and we need to reduce that. If the world has to get to net zero by 2050, which is what was agreed, then transport sector being one of the easier sectors to decarbonize will need to move much faster, and we see that in Europe, which has come out with the essentially an ICE ban by 2035. US has come out with regulations which will essentially kind of lead to about 60% new sales by 2032. So every country is looking at it from how fast they can move and what's realistic, etc. But I think apart from decarbonization, every country is also looking at it from other angles. So, for example, India is looking at it from the perspective of industrialization. So, how do we make sure that our large automotive industry, which is now the third largest in the world, can transition by creating domestic demand first, and how this can lead to India also becoming a leading exporter, at least of light vehicles, two wheelers, three wheelers, etc., and also for cars, buses, trucks, etc., and everything. But the idea is, how do we make sure that we get manufacturing investments through this transition? And if you see all the policies, the PLI scheme, ACC, PLI, there are lots of things which are, and even with FAME, the incentives which are for adoption have local content requirements. So, everything is being looked at from the perspective of how do we get manufacturing investments in this space. So that's a big driver for India. I'll also look at, as part of my work, some of the emerging markets. So, say for example, Indonesia or for Chile, they are big producers of raw materials. So, Indonesia is the world's largest nickel raw material producer. So, they want to look at e-mobility from the battery manufacturing perspective and the upstream value addition perspective, how they can refine nickel within Indonesia, for example, right? And similarly for Chile for lithium and other. So, I think every country, just to conclude, I think every country needs to look at it from their perspective. Apart from decarbonization, what are their interests? Do they want to reduce their oil import bills? Do they want to kind of manage pollution in cities? So depending on what the primary interests are, you devise your policies, and policies play or have been playing a crucial role in all countries where adoption has moved forward. So how do you adopt your policies or adapt your policies to your requirements which complement decarbonization?
Thank you, Jasmeet. I really think that you have set a good segue for me to talk to Mr. or ask Mr. Norbu. See, I always have this question that Bhutan is already a carbon negative, in fact, country. So, what prompts or what is your case for EV? And another piece which is interesting on Bhutan is your IC engines or EVs all are imported. So definitely there are duties. So how do you see it is panning out?
Uh, Thank you, USAID and SAREP for thank you for inviting us. Uh, by the way, I'm not wearing the national dress, but Mr. Agarwal, believe me, I'm from Bhutan. Anyway, why adopt EV in Bhutan? Although we are already carbon neutral, in fact, carbon negative. In early 1920s, when the famous British mountaineer George Mallory was asked why he wants to climb the Mount Everest, he answered, because it is there. Well, EV is there. EV technology is there. That's why we want to adopt it. But Bhutan, we want to adopt electric vehicles for even more other reasons. For example, if you look at the trade statistics of the country for now, we generate revenue from our export of hydropower to our neighboring country, India, which is also the greatest trading partner. So, from all the revenue that we generate from the sale of hydroelectricity, almost as much as 80% of the revenue is deflected out of the country for the import of petrol and diesel, petroleum products, basically. That's why it is a strong case that we adopt electric vehicles in the country, given that we have, in apart from the lean season, we have abundant run of the river green energy in the country. Also, even more larger reason why we adopt electric vehicle, for instance, in the countries that, uh, for example, we have the commitment to initiate sustainable development and environment conservation. So this electric vehicle initiative in the country, small as though it may be, especially in the context of your local context, it is a stepping stone together with other initiatives such as smart metering, resilient smart power grid system, and other initiatives in the country. These are the stepping stones to remain, to do good on our international commitment to remain carbon neutral and, in fact, carbon negative for all times to come. And on the question of the import of electric vehicle, yes, Bhutan is not a manufacturing country. In fact, we rely most of the goods, even the domestic demand for as mundane as toothpick, for example, or a small packet of noodle. We depend largely on the import of goods from, like I said, the largest trading partner and the developer partner is India. So we import mostly from India. For now, what I can say is that for every import of electric vehicle, we have exempted sales tax, custom duty on the import of electric vehicles. Also, not just the electric vehicles, but the ancillary facilities such as unitized power substation, for example, or the charging machine itself, the CCS, charging machines that we import, they are all tax exempted. However, I must highlight here that it is a very humbling experience to introduce new technology, EV technology, in a small hamlet country such as Bhutan. Even more so when you yourself, you're not an expert. I'm not an expert in electric vehicle, for instance. Uh, that's why my small team and I, we learn as the project progresses. It is almost like we are changing tires on a moving vehicle. But with all these challenges, the previous presentation made by Principal Secretary Shri Ashish Kundra, he has highlighted all the relevant challenges that we face. I feel as if the presentation, if I have to make a presentation, the content would essentially be the same. The high upfront cost, the range anxiety, poor post-sale service, and so on and so forth. But uh, having all these challenges on the table. We are trying to do the best we can, and for now, we are crushing the EV initiatives on government subsidies. And I know that I understand that the government subsidies on the import of vehicles, especially EVs, it will only go so far. So we have to adopt more sustainable approach for long-term success of the EV initiative for this for now. Uh, so that's it in the uh, EV initiatives of the country. Thank you.
I think very nicely put, Mr. Nogu. I really appreciate that. And I think my next question goes to Mr. Rajneesh Rana, I mean, from CSL. And it's very interesting that CSL has cracked the code for when it comes to demand aggregation in the country through its e-mobility grand challenge. So maybe you would like to inform audience about it, how we did that, what exactly were the outcomes, and what is your strategy when I say in terms of getting into other vehicle segments. So these are the two prong questions which I have for you.
Yeah, thanks, Mr. Agarwal. So, just like to brief the attendees that not only for the e-buses, the ESL, CSL has been in this business for the last 10 years, and we have been instrumental in aggregation business. And e-buses is the latest program. Prior to that, many of the programs, which are some of them are the world renowned programs like LED bulb programs, smart metering, and decentralized solar. So EV also we have started the journey around 2018 when we have start deploying the e-cars to the government departments. Apart from that, we have started simultaneously for the infrastructure also for this public charging infrastructures for the vehicles. So we have started around 6 years ago, and now we can see the effect that it is now start picking up. So our effect is, if you'll see that 2,000 cars we have deployed so far in the government and public sectors, which has saved almost a tremendous amount of fuel to the country. And these cars have run almost uh, 100 million kilometers so far they have covered. So we can make out that this 2,000 number of cars can make up so much of impact. Similarly, the charging infrastructure, we are working for that one. We are aggregating the demand for that one so it can be scaled up and it can be the aspiration of the government can be fulfilled at every nook and corner. You can find easily the charging infrastructure also apart from the e-vehicle deployment. Then e-bus is the latest success story, which is a talk around. Uh, Again, we have aggregated the demand from the states because we have seen that by aggregating the demands, the prices can come down and the benefit can be passed on to the government or to the general public for these aggregations. So 16,000 buses we have already aggregated, which is a large number if you'll see in a 1.5 years time. And we have been mandated by the government to aggregate around 50,000 buses. A target of 2030 has been capped. But we are sure the kind of way the things are moving, it can be very well achieved by 2026 itself. And we have a large number of e-buses, as in the some of the presenters have also presented that one. When we talk about the environment benefit about all these e-vehicles is tremendous. This e-buses will save almost a 1 billion liters of a fuel every year to the country, where we are importing almost 70% of the crude from our need from different countries. And the reduction of greenhouse gases is tremendous from all these programs. So that these are the benefits. But there comes a where the opportunities are also there, where we have almost a sale of 20 million of two-wheelers every year, the IC based two-wheelers. And now we have picked up almost a million sale of the two-wheelers now these days. So there is a tremendous opportunity. Number of players are there who have set up their shop over here. Similarly for the cars also. So yes, there are some challenges which, especially for the e-bus program, and we are trying to mitigate that also, that it can be successfully done. So that's it from myself.
So thank you so much, Mr. Rana. Appreciate that. And what I realize, you and what Jasmeet said is like at the end of the day, the focus is on reducing the cost. So if we do demand aggregation, we are reducing the cost, or the ways we have to ensure that the cost of capital also reduces so that more players start coming in. And this is what then my question to another panelist, which is Mayank Bhardwaj, is that what kind of innovative financing, Mayank, you see will support in long-term transition roadmap to for shifting towards electric vehicles?
Yeah, thanks, Sumit. So I will just mention one thing, that the investment opportunity is huge. Just some numbers. There are about 16 lakh buses operating in India. The first market is, even if you start to replace them, the amount of investment that is there. First piece. Second, uh, you know, Niti Aayog and some of the think tanks, the kind of investment targets or the investment requirements they have mentioned is about $200 billion till 2030. John mentioned about that e-investment platform, e-mobility investment platform. Now, when we went out, we could find deals worth $1 billion in the next 6 months. So we're talking about those sort of numbers at the moment. Now, if you talk about the innovative instruments, the financing instruments, there are a lot of players you see in the e-mobility space that are raising equity. And equity cannot be followed by equity. If you keep on putting in equity, what will happen is the valuations will go off, the business models will not be robust, and you will get into a spin wherein you'll not be able to come out. So ultimately now the debt has to take over in some cases, and I think that's where a lot of these guys are facing a problem. So once you have raised equity, you go to the debt side, you raise the debt, the business models become robust, and then it's easy to scale up. And then after again 3 years, you go for an equity. So, the focus should be on having those instruments that will help such companies raise debt. Now, how do we do that? So, Rajneesh ji also mentioned about the bus program. We also know about the three-wheeler segment, the four-wheeler segment. The bus program ultimately, you see at some point of time, we'll realize uh, on the payment security by the state transport corporations. So whether the payments are coming, whether there are delays, whether there are difficulties, defaults, so that again some support in that direction, maybe by the government or the DFIs. That is one solution possibly for the buses program. Similarly, we have seen on the three-wheeler segment the World Bank facility, the SIDBI facility, which is expected to possibly come up in the next couple of months. That will also ease the problem. Interestingly, we are at a phase that the government has provided the incentives, and now we have to transition, and the commercial capital has to take over for it to actually scale up. So, in that transition, this support or this lag, which comes in the form of guarantees, in the form of credit enhancements, that is the role now we need to focus, and that gap has to be filled up by either the government or the DFIs, or similar, the foundation capital as we call it, and provide such sort of risk guarantee mechanisms which help these companies in taking debt, so that they grow and they again go for a higher valuation and another round of equity raise, and the process can be repeated. So I'll just make my case here, and yeah.
Yeah, I think that is an interesting insight, Mayank. Appreciate that. And what I also see is that this problem of financing is almost same, even if we consider India, Sri Lanka, Bhutan, or other South geographically aligned countries. And that brings me to the article, Dr. Tusita, which I read recently, was that Sri Lanka plans to scrap its existing state-owned IC vehicles by 2025. So, is there any thought process going on the retrofit? I mean, what exactly are you thinking about? How you want to promote retrofitting, or you see the ways which the country is planning to move forward on this piece?
Thank you. In fact, first I would like to thank having me USAID and SAREP. It's a very important event for us to also learn. This particular topic in Sri Lankan context is a kind of a different thing. It's linked to the economy because we are heavily dependent upon importation of petroleum, and 1/3 of our income basically goes for that. Major culprit is transport sector. It's very inefficient in the sense that now we look at presently public transport contribute to around 33%. It was for our public, what you call this, mobility, passenger transport. It was 70% in 2015, 2005. 2015 is 50%. Now presently it's only 33%. It's coming down. Lot of vehicles are coming into the road. So we have too many vehicles on the road. So out of 6 million active fleet, we have 55% almost two-wheelers, 20% three-wheelers. So it's flooded with vehicle. So even for EVs, so of course we want to promote EV because of this economy issue. We don't have dollars to import petroleum. The reason we have this crash landed our economy. So one of the culprits is the transport. But if we want to promote EV, one side is the economy, other one is the air pollution aspect. And we have very old vehicle fleet also. We have two-stroke three-wheelers, which was banned sometime 20 years or 15 years back, but still we have 150,000 two-wheelers running on the road. So air pollution issue. So air pollution and the economy
has driven the concept of EVs, and we have been trying to promote EVs for last maybe 15 years, but still we have only 8,000 vehicles on the road. Half of that is cars, then two-wheelers, three-wheeler very few. So we are struggling. And with this economic crisis, the government has now presently banned importation of IC. No more petrol, diesel vehicles are imported, it's banned. But it's open for EVs, but still EVs are not coming. So there's a lot of issues. So one of the key aspects is basically we don't have space for EVs to put into the road. So therefore, the concept now presently is how to. So the idea is like if we bring a EV, we have to make sure that one of the IC should go out. So therefore, only the potential way is retrofit. So, and we look at the numbers, as I said, 70%, more than 70% are two-wheelers and three-wheelers. And even looking at that in technology readiness, those are retrofitting items are there for those technologies. So therefore, the government is now looking for retrofitting of two-wheeler and three-wheeler to replace IC one side, then promote EV the other side. And of course, we are looking at integrating renewables because renewables are heavily promoted in Sri Lanka, solar PV especially. The rooftop systems are coming. We have 50,000 rooftop systems solar. So most of these, half of these rooftop solar systems having, kind of a EV, with that, so that they buy a EV and rooftop system there. So we are integrating solar with the EVs. So those are the, kind of a thing. So, but then we are facing a lot of problems regarding the technology readiness. There are around 15 local manufacturers on EV retrofitting and new EVs with global and regional partnerships. But then in the technology side, we have one side the what you call type approval team. When you convert a EV, there's no way of testing or getting type approval. So then in our registration procedure, the type approval is a must. So therefore now, in fact, recently we changed that one. But we have issue of the safety and that one aspect. Secondly, of course, the capacity of technical personnel. Again, another important aspect, we don't have data. Like we don't know the performance of these EVs on the road, local context. That's another issue. Battery management has become an issue. So there are a lot of issues we are struggling. So therefore, now to cater for that one, there are some pilot projects just started. One is UNDP funded one. We are converting 200 three-wheelers with UNDP funding, and also there's a F7 cycle. We got funding like $1 million US to have a pilot project to integrate EVs into the city planning. So we are selected as a city. In the city planning, we have integrated that one, especially for the last mile. Okay, so that we are promoting public transport and then last mile connectivity, and also some services which cannot be catered by the public transport. We are looking at EVs. We don't want to promote a situation where people move away from public transport and going for EVs. So you want to promote public transport, then connect to the EVs rather than having the kind of a competition between public transport and EVs. So that's the concept we are trying out, but still we are struggling. But some of the success stories we hear, especially in India, I think will give a quite a input for us to somehow accelerate this transition.
I think,
Thank you.
yeah, thank you so much, Dr. Tusita. I have one more question to Jasmeet before I open it for any Q&As from audience. E-trucks. I mean, we talk about e-bus, we talk about two-wheeler, three-wheeler, but what is the story of e-truck? You work on industry decarbonization. Maybe quickly in 1 minute because time is already up and I'm eating everyone's time.
Sure. Very quickly, 30% of India's road transport emissions come from trucks, although they make up, very small 1 or 2% of the overall kind of vehicle sales. So that's kind of the big piece of the puzzle, but also the small piece. So you only need to solve for a few number of trucks to be, viable to operate on, electricity or hydrogen, but they solve a big problem. So, that's something that we've been working on. The way we are trying to do it is to bring together demand for about 100 trucks, create a corridor, India's first zero emission road freight corridor, and get 5 or 10 key you know forward looking companies to provide the demand for those 100 trucks. Just today, I was at another meeting where we met with Dalmia Cement, which is a large cement producer in India. They've deployed a few electric trucks, and on an OPEX basis for the new trucks that they're deploying, they're saying that they're already saving money without incentives, right? So it's almost there. There are some challenges to be solved, but electric trucks will be the next electric bus, and I'm happy to discuss how that can be financed, for example, or how the demand can be aggregated and learn from some of the panelists that we have here as well.
Thank you
Thank
so
you.
much, Jasmeet. Any questions from audience? We have one hand raised here. Can you just pass on the mic, please?
Uh, Hello, check, check. Hi, good evening, and thanks for an awesome discussion. Um, there was one point you guys have not raised, which is about fuel cell EV. We've always been talking about battery EV today. Um, Top down from the government, of course, Apurva is here. I wanted to put that question to the panelists earlier, but maybe somebody can answer what is our position now on FCEV vis-a-vis the BEV? Do we promote both or only one, or are we riding two horses?
Anyone would like to take that shot?
Quickly, from Sri Lanka, we of course have now working on hydrogen roadmap. So we are looking at the potential for that. But when you look at the technology readiness level, especially the supply chain for hydrogen is still not there. So I think technology is not ready for to absorb, but we are keeping the options open. We know that transition is happening in the technology also. So that once the technology is ready, then we can absorb. But presently, we have that gap. Also, we are looking at green hydrogen, but because we have excess renewable, so that's another plus point. So the government is very keen, but what we see still the technology is not ready for us to put into the society. That's the challenge we are having.
Thanks.
Thank
I
you
think
so
that
much.
covers most of the countries. We are still 50-50. I just had one more question, if you don't
We
mind.
can take it offline.
Sure. Okay.
Thank you so much. So I think I'll just conclude with 3-4 points which I have just gathered from discussion. One is that I think critical mass of anything is very much required. Like if you're talking about e-trucks, Mr. Rana was talking about e-bus. So that is one thing definitely which has emerged out. Second piece is about OEM model availability, like what Mayank was saying. Equity cannot follow equity, so there has to be certain kind of a blended financing thing which has to be needed. Mr. Nobu made a very interesting remark that it's not about what we are carbon negative, so what? I mean, the vision is very high, and we have to continue with that vision. Really great insights. Thank you so much from to all the panelists. And I now look upon calling my colleague for further proceedings. Shilpi.
Uh, Thank you, Sumit, for moderating the panel discussion. Your thoughtful questions and insightful commentary helped in making the discussion truly informative. I would like to thank all the panelists also for taking out time for this and for sharing your thoughts on this topic. I would now request Sumit to present the mementos to our speaker and panelist. I would now request all panelists for a group photo. Uh, mhm.
Thank you so much. I think I have announcement that audience needs to come back to the room in 20 minutes to join the World Cafe session. Oh, 10 minutes? Okay. I'm so sorry, but we are running short of time. Go ahead.
So just adding on to what Sumedh was mentioning, we have the finale, most interesting session, the World Cafe session in the next 10 minutes. Request you all to please come back after grabbing your cup of tea and coffee. Thank you so much. And the bag?
Another thing, yeah. So if you could please take care of your bags right now because there'll be a different table arrangement. So please take your bags along with you and be back in 20 minutes.